let me begin by talking about your Italian grandmother. Although I don't think either of us is Italian, um, I've been having a chance to look in on an Italian grandmother this way. Um, on TikTok, uh, there's a guy who films his Italian grandmother. It's called Cooking with Pia Grandma. And I think the Italian term for grandmother is Nonna. So her name is Nonna Pia. And so this guy comes in and films his grandmother cooking all the time. Have you ever seen this TikTok by any chance, Zach?
No, I haven't seen her. I can't believe I missed it.
It's kind of, you know, who can resist? And so there's this little old Italian lady. I happen to know she's 85. And she bustles around her suburban kitchen making all kinds of great Italian meals. You know, everything you've ever heard of, soup, you know, and lasagna, and just great looking stuff. And you never see her grandson. He's always filming her. And on every show, he can't avoid making three comments. A lot of comments. He makes them. He starts by making them. It's almost like, of course, he loves his grandmother, but her behavior sort of offends him. And so a lot of times the shows begin with that. So, Grandma, you're going to make that with your bare hands. So they always have, you know, so she's like kneading dough. She makes her own bread. Of course, it's unbelievable how she does all this. You mean that bunch of stuff is going to become some delicious bread? And the answer to that is right. And so she's slightly offended. She speaks English with an accent. She says, "What? I think my fingernails are dirty." Forget my mock Italian accent. And, you know, everything's going to go into the oven and cook for hours at 400 degrees. So she doesn't worry about it. The second, he always objects to the fact that she loves cheese on everything. And so she pours a ton of cheese on it. He cannot resist. Happens every meal where he goes, well, we'll have to take a cholesterol test tomorrow, Grandmom. Yeah. The funniest thing of all is she's got a lot of knives. She's chopping up and cooking all this stuff. And she cuts towards her body. She peels potatoes towards her body. She slices bread towards her body. And he can never resist, no matter how many times they do this, commenting on the fact, isn't that dangerous, Grandma? You know, and she's 85. She's got all of her, she knows how to slice things. I just have to make a slight mention. There's a film called Christ Stopped at a Bowling. And it's a memoir by a guy named Carlo Levi, who was a communist doctor, Jewish, in Milan. And when the fascists took over, they sent him into exile. And so we wrote a memoir about it. And then they eventually made a film about it. And I went to see it with my old friend who you know, Alta Ann. It's a 5-hour-long film. We actually went out for dinner during the break. And there's a million amazing things about the film. But the one thing that Alta Ann said was, yeah, the way they cut bread, they cut it towards themselves. That's Alta Ann spent a lot of time in Greece. Yeah. That's exactly how they did it in Greece. It's sort of like your mother and you, but you'll teach your child never cut the bread. Why would you ever do that? So, here you are. He loves his grandmother. She's making this incredible food. She's 85, and every show he raises the same three health objections.
So I'm ready for when you're going to talk about wine. I know what's happening.
Oh, I have a long wine development. It's too damn long. Forgive me. When old Dan and I went to see, she pours wine on stuff. I don't remember if she drinks wine while she's cooking. When all Dan and I saw Christ Stopped at a Boli, we saw it at the Film Forum. And right around the corner, there's a Italian restaurant on Bleecker Street, a fish restaurant. And I've never, ever seen a table there, it's Italian, where they didn't have, the table didn't have wine. Never once. And they have a thing in New York they probably don't have in Burlington. People from all over the country pay money. They come to New York to see a show. The show starts at 7. So they take the people to this restaurant, a mass of them at 5 o'clock, and they serve them an Italian meal. And every table has wine. And I have kind of a lot of guts. So this is the limit of my guts. I ask the people at each table, like, where are you here from? And they're from, I don't know, Omaha or Topeka. I don't have enough guts to say to them, do you drink wine at home there? Because those are, but once they get sort of like, well, we're in New York. We're an Italian restaurant. You drink wine.
Okay, here. Yeah, right.
So anyhow, Nonna Pia, I think that's what it's called, isn't afraid. Wine's part of her regular diet. So there are all three of the things that her loving grandson points out, in fact, are things that there are actually health theories about them. People actually, she's 85 or 86, I've mentioned that. She stands up the whole time she's cooking. And she's slicing carrots and celery and soaking beans. It's physically arduous work. And of course, her head has to be in it. I mean, the other thing you always ask her, this isn't a health thing, he always says, Grandma, you never measure anything or look at a recipe. I says, no, my mother taught me, and that's just how I do it. So, I mean, there are theories that every one of these things is actually healthy. Believe it or not, there are theories that Americans have so many infections because they're not familiar enough with enough germs. They're so germ avoidant that they don't get exposed in the normal growing up period to enough germs to become immune to them. There's the diets in Southern Europe, the Mediterranean diet, which I'll talk a little bit more about, is full of cheese. And we believe, well, cheese creates cholesterol, which is bad for you. They have far less heart disease than we do. And there are theories that cutting towards yourself with a knife gives you greater control of it. So all of these things, it's sort of like a cultural conflict. It's like the grandson sort of is an American, and he's sort of dealing with a person from a different era. And what does she do that's healthy? Well, she's always eating fabulously fresh food. Remember, she's 85. Now she's 86. I looked her up. She stands up the whole time. She's completely mentally adroit. He always says, are you going to eat that now, Nonna? And she always says, no, I'm going to eat it later. So there's a sense of appropriate. She doesn't nosh. She eats a meal, and she doesn't keep pouring food in her mouth while she's preparing it. The second thing she does, add wine, and there's actually, of course, in America, as we've discussed, we're now in an alcohol is bad for you phase. So you'll see the Mayo Clinic says something like the Mediterranean diet has been shown to produce fresh fish, a lot of vegetables, and then they'll say something like, and some wine won't hurt you. That's how they'll phrase it. There's actually research that shows that adding wine into that mixture is actually part of what makes it healthy. And here's the last point I want to make about, he always makes this point to his grandmother. Now, she adds too much cheese. She cuts towards herself. She uses her bare hands. And she's always making a massive amount of food. I mean, it's gigantic, and she's a little old grandmother. Why is she making a massive amount of food?
Because Italians eat together.
She says, oh, some neighbors will drop by. Oh, your cousins are going to drop by. And so here the grandson is worried about his grandmother's health. He's compulsively worried. He can't stop talking about it. So let me just first jump to the data. If you had a guess, I looked it up. Who has a longer life expectancy, Italians or Americans?
Golly, it's got to be Italians.
They're sixth in the world with a life expectancy of 84.2 years. The United States is 47th. 40 frigging 7th, 79.7. That's 4.5 years on average per every human being. How's that happen? I mean, we're Americans. We have money. We have food. We have doctors. So I just want to give one last shout out to what is healthy about Nonna Pia and these massive amounts of food she's making. It's sort of like, it seems like the whole family comes by every night. It seems like she just lets if a neighbor comes by, she sort of go, hey, come on in. Let's have some, a meal. That's the way you look at it. She's making a giant tray of lasagna, and she's a little old lady. So I just want to refer back to this last health factor. Our Surgeon General currently is named Vivek Murthy. He's an Indian. He's the 21st Surgeon General, but he was also the 19th Surgeon General. He served first under Obama, and in 2016, he issued a report called A Promise Fulfilled Addressing the Nation's Opioid Crisis. I don't understand a promise fulfilled that's part of the title. It must have been like Obama or the head of the National Institute of Health said, well, listen, just tell everybody how horrible opioids are, they're all going to die. Then somewhere along the line, he quit or he retired and he wrote a book. And the book wasn't about opioids. The book was about community. And this year, he became the 21st Surgeon General. And this year, he issued a Surgeon General advisory, raising alarms about the devastating impact of the epidemic of loneliness and isolation in the United States. So they have all kinds of statistics, like living alone and always eating alone and having no family and friends is the equivalent, they'll say, of smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. They'll have all kinds of, in terms of life expectancy. So here is this young whippersnapper. I don't think you ever see him. Maybe once maybe they'll have a video of the whole family eating, but all you ever see is his point of view. Who's he keeps advising his grandmother of all the unhealthy things she's doing, and she's making this massive amount of food, and he's hanging out. He's going to eat there, and she's 85, and she's got the key to a healthy life: to be active, to eat healthy food. She pours wine on stuff and cheese. And she's connected to her annoying grandson and all of his cousins and whatever. And the people in the neighborhood. She's a living example of being totally engaged with the people around her.
I've been hearing a lot of talk lately about, I mean, and this is like your whole career and our whole world right now, but ideas about the cure becoming worse than the problem itself, the sickness itself. And, that's like used colloquially or metaphorically, and also literally in this case, it's like the idea of, oh, safety, oh, caution, washing hands, oh God, wine, oh, cheese, cholesterol. And, meanwhile, this guy's giving himself a heart attack, and
he's going to have I don't know anything about the grandson, how he's in his 20s. He's going to die before he's 85 or 86 of a heart attack by the statistics of it.
I'm naive. Is he like playing a character, or are they just being themselves, you think?
He never tires of feeling that she's doing unhealthy things. It's compulsive. So the point, it's almost like a summary of everything that we say is this: we follow a ton of behaviors around what are called, often appetitive, they're called behaviors. Eating, smoking. She never smokes, on the show at least. Drinking. And we're preoccupied with them. And we've lost track of what it actually means to lead a healthy, enjoyable, community-based life. And so, other than him cutting up his grandmother, his Nonna Pia, the show's about cooking. The show never says we're going to teach you about health, because he's thinking, oh, I hope nobody criticizes us for being unhealthy. But actually, Nonna Pia is a model of health.
It's funny, when you were describing it, I was thinking about the grandson. He sounds like a parent in America who's my age now.
I think of you, yeah.
But, and we wrote our book Outgrowing Addiction with the idea. Well, my big idea was that, well, if we talk about common sense stuff with kids, that people will definitely think that's right, and then that will transfer across the lifespan, and people will finally understand addiction. It's not a bestseller, but it's almost like you could go backwards with this one. You could go. I wonder if people will be so sympathetic with the grandmother's sensibilities that they might say, Jesus, I hope this isn't how I'm raising my kid.
I think we talk about this in the past. We're going to talk about it again, I think, in some other videos we're going to be doing. Americans are so cocksure that we've got the answers, that even when you made this point earlier, when the data comes in and we live 4.5 years on average shorter lives than Italians, that'll never make an American think, maybe we should try and imitate the Italian.
That's
Drink
right.
more wine, maybe have more cheese, but have it in one meal. You know what I mean? Not nibble or nosh. You can't create a giant family in a community. Nonna Pia, I believe her husband has died, just has that. And one reason she has it is because she makes a ton of food and is just always serving it. So we could steal the entire, no, we can. the entire video and say, hey, we're going to do the Nonna Pia health show.
Right. Oh, Nonna Pia.
Nonna Pia, I'll pretend, hey, we'll call her Nonna Pia, right? She's more Romanian than Italian.
That's right.
So and the bottom line, to draw one last connection to the Life Process program, health, including alcohol and other and food consumption, is part of a holistic approach to life that is satisfying, that is me. I just one thing. Nonna Pia believes in making good food. You might say, why is she bothering at the age of 80? It's a lot of work. She has a purpose in life. She believes in it.
In the US, you go into a restaurant and they might have a slogan. And I've noticed in traveling in Italy, I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but it seems right. They'll tell you what their restaurant's philosophy is, which I always find interesting. They have a philosophy behind their cooking. And when you say she believes in it, that's a whole different way of thinking about this concept, isn't it?
Well, there was a funny feature. There was an article in the New York Times. When parents take their kids to school in France, in America, they say, well, how much math do they have? You know what I mean? Do they learn about commuters? The article was about the French parents say, how do you serve for lunch? Who prepares lunch? And what are the meals?
Right.
There are different ways of living, and Americans are not, and we are partly what we're doing is trying to expand our horizons to understand that.
Good. Points taken. Excellent. Thank you,
Excellent.
Stanton.
All right.